Hi there. In one of our other videos on organisational culture, we identified a series of reasons why management might want to change that culture. However, the issue is that organisational culture change is difficult. So let's just spend a few minutes thinking about why that is. What are the problems of changing culture? Well, one way of thinking about this is to consider the models of organisational culture. So I've put on screen there two models which you probably don't need to know in detail, but help understand the main problem when management decide that they want to change organisational culture, perhaps as part of a wider change management project. Because it's one thing to identify the need for and then deciding to attempt to change culture, but the reality is it's easier said than done. And the key reason for this is that culture is usually deeply embedded right at the centre. It's ingrained in the organisation, and therefore that makes it hard to change. Just looking at the first model on the left hand side there, this is drawn from strategy work by Johnson and Scholes, and they point to a variety of features of culture that make it more resistant to attempted change. For example, the power structures there, the power structures of a business that decide who makes decisions, who has authority in a business, how are decisions made. Well, if you're going to change culture, you're going to have to change, potentially, likely, the power structures. Therefore, you're going to have to change the very people and structures that make those decisions. You can imagine there will be a lot of resistance to that kind of change. And that might suggest that if you're going to change organisational culture, you need new leadership, new power structures at the same time in order to give yourself a chance of success. Let's point out another part of Johnson and Scholes' model over here, the rituals, the routines that are embedded in how a business is, how it does business. These are the sort of the daily actions, the routines, the behaviours of individuals within the organisation on a day-to-day basis, how they deal with customers, how they communicate with each other, how they call each other. And as we all know, it's hard, when we've tried to make New Year's resolutions, it's really hard to break and change habits and routines, and that's what a lot of organisational culture is. So that's why culture change is hard. Let's just look for a few seconds at the model on the right-hand side here by the guru of organisational culture, a guy called Ed Schein. And he identified a series of fairly famous model of culture, which identified a series of layers of culture. It's often described as an onion model. Peel away the layers of culture and you get to the bit that's hardest to change, what he called the organisational paradigm, right there at the centre. There we go. It's pointed out at the centre of the culture onion. And at this centre, this paradigm, this is the unspoken culture. It's the generally accepted way of doing things in the business. It's really hard to describe, it's hard to identify, except that people in the business recognise when they see it. And it's a really hard thing to change because it's been developed over time. So there we go. I mean, that's just an overview of why organisational culture change is hard. You don't need to know those models in details, but I think the key point to take away is that culture change is hard because culture is embedded deep inside an organisation. And that, therefore, by definition, must be some of the hardest things to change. Hopefully that's useful. We've just had a look there for a few minutes at the problems of changing organisational culture.